from the 915 to H-Town, from the Panhandle Plains to the Valley, and everywhere in between. This is the 50/50 Podcast, powered by College Promoters USA. Join me, Hector Cano, as we cover the Texas high school club and college soccer landscape, along with an inside look at the college soccer recruiting scene. The 50/50 Podcast is a platform about the people and for the people who are dedicated to the beautiful game.
College Promoters USA, founded and located in San Antonio, operates as the only family-owned college recruiting company in Texas that brings a truly professional, local, and face-to-face approach to area high school student athletes and their families. If your son or daughter is serious about college athletics, call them at 210-494-6363 or visit collegepromotersusa.com anytime. College Promoters USA, the best investment a parent can make in their high school student athletes.
And we're back with another special edition of Inside Texas High School Soccer, powered by College Promoters USA, our proud partners, College Promoters USA. You can find them locally in the San Antonio area here at the Ventura Plaza Shopping Center. You can also find them on social media at College Promoters USA, as well as SATX Recruiting, as well as on their website at collegepromotersusa.com. We are back. I'm proud to say we have the, as I call it, dubbed him before, the Obi-Wan Kenobi of Texas high school soccer, Coach Rafa. Rafa, how are you, buddy?
Pretty good. Recovering from last night's Chile San Antonio FC game. And in the morning and an early morning podcast that we had.
Yeah, I saw that. I think you're recovering more from the early morning pod. I was like, what were you guys thinking? Plus, with the time change, I know you, Harry, and Roy say more power to you guys. I think you guys were wrapping up as I was, waking up for the second time this morning. So, what were your thoughts? Home opener, USL kicked off the season last night. What were your quick thoughts on that SAFC match?
Well, just a little sluggish in the beginning. I think we just didn't take advantage of the inexperience from Detroit, but especially missing that PK. But second half, we kind of picked out a bit, made some substitutions, and it was able to get that goal in. And we're off to LA next week and see how they can get 3 points over there. So, and then also having a change in the lineup. There's some injuries we didn't even know. You know, there were some questionable ones that decided we were out about 3 or 4 players. So, but it's a good starter win, and we'll see. We'll take it from there, and hopefully there'll be more wins to come.
Awesome. And I think it was definitely a slow start. I think from my perspective, our point of view where we were sitting last night's match. You could definitely tell it was the first game of the season. But things definitely picked up in the second half and some interesting results across the league. So awesome. So, hey, we're glad to have you. You know, where it's been a while since we've been here, had an episode of Inside Texas High School Soccer. And for our listeners that maybe are catching this for the first time, this is kind of a spin-off series from the 50/50 podcast in collaboration with our partners at the San Antonio Soccer Roundtable in Rafa, as well as Harry. Excuse me. And kind of just took off organically, kind of by demand last year, right at the start of the playoffs. We got in, I think, about 4 or 5 episodes, and then we decided we were going to bring this back this season, kind of over the course of the season, at least try to get in 2, maybe 3 episodes before the start of the state playoffs. And then once the playoffs begin, you'll pretty much be seeing us every week. So again, that's Inside Texas High School Soccer. So thank you for being here. So today's show, we're going to cover quite a few things. So we'll have, we're going to cover what we have dubbed, or what Rafa has dubbed, kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly, kind of some surprises, both good, again, bad and ugly, across the state. Some programs who have surprised us in one way or another, maybe. As well as we're going to look at the schedule, key dates coming up as we transition and start winding down into about the last 9 days, 10 days of the season before the start of the state playoffs. And then we will wrap up with the debut of of Rafa's very own, his RPI, his Rafa Power Index, as we dub it here. So it's a very unique twist on how he's going to do his Power Index. So stay tuned for that. Very excited about that because it's going to be a very interesting twist on how he put that together. So, all right, Rafa, let's dive right in. Give us a quick look, maybe over the course of this season, right? We've had some surprises, both good and some, I hate to say bad, but some teams who maybe we were expecting more have the pedigree, or maybe even just, have just struggled for a number of reasons to get on the right foot. Could be injuries. Again, some teams have battled COVID, rescheduling. And then, of course, with those reschedules and sometimes having to play 3 games in a week, coupled with injuries, or maybe it's a game on a weekend. The club players, they're affected by showcases as well. So there's a number of factors that come into play, obviously. But so we're going to look at the girls first here, Coach. So we look across the state. Give me, maybe one program that stands out to you in terms of that has far exceeded expectations in terms of the good, maybe has kind of underperformed for the bad, and then just the ugly, whatever direction you want to go with the ugly. So what are your thoughts when you look across the state for the girls?
As far as with the good, the one team that I'm still impressed, even from last year with the run they had to the finals and winning the finals for the 5A girls is Dripping Springs. I mean, they're just loaded with talent, and even their JV team is loaded with talent, and that's the scary part. And now they're moving up to 6A. I'm sure Lake Travis and the Westlake are not too happy about them moving up, and I think they're going to give them a lot of problems. And I could see Dripping Springs being a favorite for that district, because they did beat Lake Travis in a non-district game, which was a big statement, pretty much to the state. Say, hey, we're not going anywhere. He's still going to have to deal with us. So they're, like I said, they've been my favorites to repeat. I think they just have the pedigree. They just methodically know how to pick you apart, and I haven't seen many teams do that. And they're very patient. Even though there was one game that they were down against Bernie, I think it was Bernie Champion, in their home field, they still came back and took care of business. So that's one of the surprise, I guess, not say surprises, but as far as really exceeded my expectations for this year. And there's some other teams too that really as well. I'm very impressed. And then also, like in District 29 6A, there's 3 quality teams in that district. You got Taft, you got O'Connor. I got to recently see O'Connor and Brendan play, and back and forth, but all 3 have been battling for that district title. Even the other district, 28 6A, there's like 6 teams deep that can make the playoffs, and probably can make the playoffs at other districts. So, and then you got your Metroplex. You can say like your Flymar Marcus, Capel. Basically at your, like, kind of your Murdersville as far as district play. It's a playoff game.
Right.
It could be like a regional final, pretty much. In those district games. So those are a lot of the good things. Even like in 4A, there's some good teams have been that been stepping up. Stephenville, like I said, they're one of the favorites. They remain undefeated. That Palestine team too, for the girls, they've made a statement. So I think they're gonna make some noise in the playoffs. And one team that they've been discussed a lot is a team from Giddings, which is like a newer program. They're undefeated, and so a lot of great, like I said, a lot of great things there. As far as the bad, surprising the Bernie girls, they've struggled this year. They were the favorite to win the state. They got knocked out by Callan, and we all thought they were going to win the district, no problem at all. But they've had some issues, trying to win that. I think they're still in it, between them and Wimberley, but they look vulnerable. And like I said, and a lot of the teams are not going to be afraid to play them in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think going into Friday's matches, Wimberley was still in first, correct?
Yeah. So that was kind of like the bad there because my expectations, and I like I said, discussed like in our show that was talking to Harry, is I thought they would bounce back, learn from what happened last year, and really kind of take the bull by the horns and dominate. But that hasn't been the case this year for the district play, and hopefully, like I said, they can get it together and see if they can make a run and knock off if they meet Callan again, knock them off in the in the playoffs and get to the to the state tournament.
Yeah. And no need for an ugly. Nobody's met the ugly category for any number of reasons on the girls'
I think the one ugly is the Wichita Falls Rider. Those 6 games they had a forfeit, and to win all those games and then to use an ineligible player, that is not very smart on the coaching staff. And to lose, losing those games really will affect your team's psyche, and going into, like I said, I'm sure they'll make the playoffs. They're a talented team, but those without those ineligible players, it's going to be a different look for them, going into the playoffs.
Right.
And and then a lot of teams may not have to show respect for them for for the things they did.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like the ugly part,
Yeah.
for the girls' soccer side.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I do have to call you out though. I did catch a glimpse of you rocking the Dripping Springs beanie this morning. So I was fully expecting you to come on here the same again, but no. So a little disappointed there, but no, I'm just kidding. So now we transition over to the boys' side, Coach. Again, looking at, excuse me, you're good, you're bad, and you're ugly. Good as far as overperformed or the big surprise on the positive side. The bad, maybe a team or two that have underperformed, that have just shockingly have just not been where people have expected them to for a number of reasons. Again, we said just in large part it's usually the tradition, the pedigree of that program. And then, of course, the ugly is how as you see fit, right? So on the boys' side, what do you got?
As far as the good, I mean, what can you say about El Paso Eastlake? I mean, I know that had a disappointment, as far as not getting knocked off in the playoffs, which a game they should have won. But they've bounced back and they've beaten some teams, and I mean they manhandled Frisco Wakeland, and we don't see that often,
Right.
And that was in Frisco's backyard too. So that shows you that team's on a mission to really kind of redeem itself and get to the final. And I think this could be the year that finally all the pieces are going to fit together. Everything's going to go their way and finally make breakthrough and get to Georgetown. Other good team as far as good. This is actually an upstart team, new team this year that we covered here in San Antonio is the Hondo Owls. First year program. We didn't know what to expect from them, and me and Harry went to go see them play, and
right.
they're in the brink of making the playoffs on their first year.
Yeah,
and that's a kind of a feel good story for that new program to make the playoffs. And then we were there for their first sister game, and they won their first sister game at home, and you can tell that by the community they're very behind this team. Both the boys and the girls, but the boys team. I said they have a good shot. I know they have to win out a couple games. I think they play tomorrow, I think at 10 a.m. And if they can get that win, I think that seals the deal for them to get into the playoffs.
They got that spring break schedule going. Is that what they're doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Who are they playing in that? Do you recall?
I believe I think they're playing. Let me pull up their schedule really quick because it might be Somerset. And I think they've been battling Somerset back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
For the playoffs, for that last playoff spot.
Right.
And let me see. I should get their schedule here. Yeah, it is against Somerset. So whoever wins this game basically pretty much clinches a playoff spot for
clinches the 4th spot, right?
Actually, it could be the 3rd spot.
Oh, okay. So both teams could be going then.
Yeah. So there's like I said, they're within striking. Like I said, distance of getting the 3rd spot.
Okay.
So,
all right.
so they have a shot there, and the Somerset kind of has it the toughest because they gotta still play a couple of the tough teams, and then also actually another team that's good that's come out and from the same district has been the Lavernia Bears, and I went to go see them play. And if I'm Bernie Greyhounds, I keep my eye on this team. They are very talented. They're very young. They're mostly sophomores and freshmen, but the way they play, they touch the ball, and their super striker was only a sophomore. He's been dynamite.
Mm-hmm.
So keep an eye out for that team because, like I said, Bernie needs to kind of keep an eye and his back for on them, and hopefully they get to meet up in the playoffs. I think that'd be a very good matchup.
Yeah, and that was going to be my question. Do you think Lavernia, obviously any given day, we understand that, but does Lavernia have all the tools capable of knocking off the defending state champs in Bernie? Do you think?
I think they do. They have the offense. They have the defenders. They respond well from adversity. I know they went to see them play against Somerset. They were down, but they came back roaring back and they put 6 on them. They could have actually put more. I think their star forward, he could have had a double hat trick if he just was unlucky on some getting balls hitting on the post. But they're very well coached. They have a lot of discipline. But they're a very hungry team. And I think, speaking to their coach a few weeks ago, they kind of felt the bite from that loss last year, and they were expected to go further. But, and a lot of people didn't think them having a lot of freshmen and sophomores, they were going to do much this year. But that hasn't been the case. And this team could be the surprise for the next couple of years, as far as a contender in Region 4. So, and like I said, Bernie needs to kind of keep an eye on them, going into the playoffs, because like I said, that's going to be a good matchup. Other good programs have been out. What can you say about some of the DFW teams like Keller? They've done a great job. Salt Lake Carroll. Those are your perennials. Another one is San Antonio Reagan. San Antonio Reagan has been the darling here one of the darlings here in San Antonio, and they finally won a district championship. They finally knocked off who were the defending 6A champs lead. I think they stopped their 40-something game winning streak in district play, or 50, and they finally clinched the district title. I was at that game as well, and they just blitzkrieg Lee and really exposed them too on some of the things and which we'll get into. I guess that leads into the ugly part, which is Lee surprised that they didn't win the district title, and people had high hopes of thinking
you're putting them in your ugly or your bad.
The bad.
You're bad. Okay.
It's just a bad, and I expected them to really do, to really kind of still set the bar and win the district. And I think injuries has been a key role. I know they lost one of their key players, but you can't count them out in the playoffs. They're still
absolutely not.
They're still the champs for until you knock off the champs. They're still going to remain the champs, and and then depending on the seeding they have, they could have who's to say they can't get through it and get back into into the state tournament.
Right. Yeah. Anyone on? Well, before we get to that, I guess, when it comes to Lee, you talk about the pedigree, you talk about they're like 1 or 2, penalties away, and then if not for COVID, they're potentially looking at a 3-peat, right? So they have the pedigree, they have the experience, they have and Coach Rogers, they have the well-experienced coaching. So can't count them out. It's been a number of issues, I think, in their perspective. It's just the reality. It's not excuses. It's the reality of of what they've been up against, and they're not the only ones that have been up against that. But
Yeah.
I think when you're the defending state champ, obviously people start to look a little closer, right? So yeah, definitely would not be wanting to play them going into the by district round, and if they can progress into the area round, because I think that's kind of a team too that they just need if they start getting warm, right? They start getting hot at the right time. And just like you said, they're the state champ until someone finishes them off, right? Until someone knocks them out of the playoffs. So yeah, I don't think we've heard the last from them by any means. Anyone on the ugly? So we've covered some good, we've covered some, or any other bad, I should say, before.
Some bad as far as not really. There's really, I don't think any ugly. More as far as bad. For Valley View, I know they're winning their district right now. They have a good record, but the bad is they lost their leading scorer. Now he's playing for the North Texas Elite, the MLS Next League. So he signed with them. So he's leaving them midway through the second half of the district season, and he was the one that depended on all the goals. And I remember watching him play against Keywood Park here for the state semifinal here in San Antonio, and he was the guy that they give the ball to. It was kind of like reminded me of that movie Kicking and Screaming, Pass It to the Italians. That's what it was there with him. But but the good, I mean, we can say is good for him, and he's signing a contract to play in MLS Next, and who's to say he's the next breakout star, if from the Valley to play, professionally and so forth. So, but the bad is, how is Valley View going to, react from this? Are they going to be competitive? Are they going to, do they have the talent to make it to get further on? Because they are going to have some tough teams that have over there, especially like Brownsville Porter and Lopez and Veterans, and
going to deal with Rivera as well. Yeah, no doubt. So awesome. So no ugly. So all right, that's our good, bad, and the ugly, both on the girls and the boys side. So as we start drawing closer, you can see down on the ticker there are not our hashtags, but the hashtags in terms of what we're trying to share with the state. So as we continue to progress, final week and a half or so of district matches, and then leading into the playoffs, which will start on Thursday, March 24th. Please be sure, and if you are in the San Antonio area, coupled with your results, make sure you tag the 210 soccer scores hashtag 210 soccer scores, as well as the hashtag Texas High School Soccer Scores, which you can see there down the bottom of your ticker. And if you're just reporting a score across the state, include that hashtag along with our main one, the main one that we use to grow the sport across the state, right? The TXHSSOC for Texas High School Soccer. But Texas High School Soccer Scores, hashtag TXHSSOC Scores. That is to ensure that we're also plugging your scores, reporting your scores as well. So a lot of schools across the area, across the region, and across some of the different regions have done really well with that this year. So for that, we thank you. We appreciate it. And just again, reminder, hashtag TXHSSOC for Texas High School Soccer Scores, and the hashtag 210 Soccer Scores for your score reporting. So, all right, Coach. So we talked about it. I just hit on it. Thursday, March 24th marks the start. Excuse me. The start of the by-district round, the state playoffs. So what I was going to go ahead and do is I'm going to share my screen here and pull up the So if you look up here closely, if you can see, hopefully you can see that. So important, the upcoming dates is what we wanted to cover next, the upcoming schedule, what that will look like. So you will have, now the interesting piece is we haven't come across, at least I haven't, I don't know if you have, Rafa, but haven't come across any games that are still slated to be played as late as Tuesday, March 22nd. But we do have, I've seen at least 3 across the state that are going to be played on Monday, March 21st. And then, of course, there may be the possibility of a play-in game or one of the heated topics as far as a coin a coin flip. Different districts have different bylaws, so the state UIL leaves that to the respective district executive committees, with the district president having a say in that as well. So when we look at the upcoming schedule, so what you'll see why the March 22nd date is so important is that is the district certification deadline that indicates when the chair of the district executive committee for all districts across the state of Texas, they have to submit to UIL their final district standings and who their playoff representatives will be. So that's an important date. So again, that's Tuesday, March 22nd. 2 days later starts the big tournament. It's the UIL state playoffs with the opening of the by-district round, which is slated for Thursday, March 24th through Saturday, the 26th. Come back the following Monday and Tuesday, you'll see there is the area round, March 28th and 29th. You fast forward to the following weekend, and then that's where you enter the regional quarterfinal round. And then the following date after that is, and we'll expand on that a little bit more in a second, is your regional tournament, which will be back after a hiatus last year, which kind of had a lot of good to it because the games were separated by about 3 days, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And you had teams that were traveling large distances that were able to accommodate that travel a lot better. So unfortunately, that is gone, and we will now return to the traditional regional tournament, which will consist of the regional semifinal and the regional final round, that being on April 8th and 9th. And then the following week is the trip. What everybody's striving for is the trip to Georgetown, April 13th through the 16th, the state soccer tournament, where we will see the state semifinal and final played there at Birkelbach Field there in Georgetown for all three classifications, 4A, 5A, and 6A for both boys and girls. So any thoughts on this, Coach, as you look at it?
Yeah, just like I said, it is going to be something different now with the normal way as far as playoffs. Last year, all the teams had to travel, even to the state semifinal. They had to go to a neutral site to play. Like I said, I went to one here. It was Kingwood Park boys versus Far Valley View for a state semifinal. Now they're going to go back to the regional sites, so that's going to be less travel. But I kind of did like last year's setup a bit. Made it interesting going to travel different places, but also the time in between. I think it allowed players to kind of rest up a bit and heal up, and maybe there's something maybe in the future of the UIL, because just kind of looking at it, it is possible to have a playoff each week, like on the weekends. They can extend it by an extra week, and I think maybe that would be a better benefit for the teams to recover, still be able to train. Like I said, we kind of have that state tournament an extra week, the following extra week, where it was the 26th or something like that. Yeah. That way, I think it's a bit more fair for the players, and like I said, less travel too, because especially you have to travel on a Monday or Tuesday night. Right. It's not going to be too bad as far as traveling like on Thursday or Friday night for students. So hopefully they'll maybe really consider that.
Yeah, and there is something to be said about that super long window from the regional quarterfinal round all the way to what would be the regional final, right? Mm-hmm. So you're talking there in essence, what is that, about 11 days for 3 games? So there's I don't think there's necessarily a reason why you couldn't continue to separate to the regional tournament the way it was done last year with the semifinal and the final. Mm-hmm. I get it in terms of they're trying to generate the buzz, but excuse me, you and I both know that so much is probably put into that semifinal to try to get into the regional final that the legs can be gone come the regional final. So, yeah. So interesting. And you kind of have that same argument can be made at the state tournament level as well. But it is what it is. So, but yeah,
yeah, even like with basketball or with football, I've seen they start the state championships on a Wednesday, and playing like a biter stick on a weekend,
right.
playing an area on a weekend, playing the quarterfinals on the weekend, everything on the weekend. It also allows fans and parents to go to the games instead of traveling on a Tuesday night or Monday or Tuesday night.
Yeah.
But also, if you're going to expect, like I say, for example, the regional semifinal, final, I know they have it back to back. I mean, if you play the game Thursday, you take Friday off, and then you play Saturday. Give them a day. Give them a day to relax, and kind of the same thing with the state tournament. Have 4A play Wednesday. And then they play the final on Friday.
Yeah.
5A plays their semifinal on Thursday. They play the final on Saturday, and then same thing with the only one probably maybe back to back would be probably just a 6A. But if they can accommodate something, maybe they can give at least a player like a day off to play. I think it could be done.
Yeah, I remember. What was it last year? I remember we were talking about it. You had definitely by district and area, but I think even regional quarterfinal round matchups last year were being played in the middle of the week, like a Tuesday, Wednesday, I think.
Well, the state regional finals was on a Tuesday.
Yeah, they were. But what I was getting at is I think as deep as a regional quarterfinal, you had them being played in the middle of the week, but at there were games at 10, 11 in the morning just because of travel. Particularly, I know that was the case in Region 1, right? So,
yeah, I know with East Lake last year when they had to travel to San Angelo.
Yeah. So, and I think that was where they played Allen, if I'm not mistaken, right? I think in the regional final, I believe. So, yeah. So some key dates there again. So the playoffs, district certification on the 22nd, March 22nd, as you see there. By district round officially kicking off. State playoffs kicking off March 24th, and it'll all end in Georgetown at Birkelbach on April 16th. Will be the final state final on that day. So, all right. So now, other thing we were going to look at. All right, here. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. All right, so having some technical issues here with my screen. Here we go. All right, so we're looking at. So wanted to dive in briefly, Coach, to look at. Can you see that? Can you see that fine, Coach?
Right. Just a little bit. Oh, you can open up a little bit more. Zoom in a little bit more.
There we go.
Here we go. Okay.
So we wanted to dive in briefly and look at the regional sites just to touch base on these for the regional tournaments, which again will consist of the regional semifinal and the regional final. So we're going to look at, and again, these go for both boys and girls, and they're divided by regions, by conference, right? By alignment or by classification, I should say. So 4A, we have here, you'll see Region 1, the Northwest ISD Stadium is the site, hosted by Northwest ISD, obviously. Region 2, you have the Christus Trinity Mother Frances Rose Stadium in Tyler, so hosted by Tyler ISD. Region 3, Legacy Stadium in Katy, hosted by Katy ISD. And then Region 4, McAllen Veterans Memorial Stadium, hosted by McAllen ISD. So again, this is for both boys and girls for all of 4A. Thoughts on here, Coach, when you look at any of the particular regions? Anything jump out to you?
Just so that Region 1, those West Texas teams are going to have to travel 6-7 hours to go to the Justin, Texas. So that's a long. Hopefully they'll figure out maybe to move it, more central.
Yeah.
Maybe to Abilene. I mean, Abilene Christian's got a nice stadium.
Yeah,
Maybe
I think that's going to be more than 6 or 7 hours for anyone coming from El Paso, probably.
yeah,
West Texas. Yeah, it just
yeah.
depends. Yeah, so okay. All
I,
right.
and then the Valley, like I said, they had a McAllen Stadium. I like to see that one played at HEB Park, where the Toros play at. That'd be a nice venue to play for original tournament there.
Okay. That takes us through 4A. Look at 5A here briefly. So in Region 1, Memorial Stadium in Wichita Falls, hosted by Wichita Falls ISD. Region 2 is Standridge Stadium in Carrollton, hosted by the Carrollton Farmers Branch ISD. And then as we move down, Region 3, Turner Stadium in Humble, hosted by Humble ISD. And then Region 4, again, this is 5A. I always say this wrong. How do you pronounce this one again? Is it Cabinet?
Cabinets.
Yeah. You know what I always call it. I won't say that out loud, but in Corpus, hosted by Corpus Christi ISD. So, all right. So, thoughts on this one, Coach?
These are kind of a little more of a neutral places to play. Maybe minus the one in Carrollton, because you still have some of those northeast Texas teams like Paris or Nacogdoches that has to still make a travel to the Metroplex. Right. But overall, it's a good kind of, like I said, it's a good way neutral site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, except for maybe Region 1, like I said, El Paso again, and another long trip to that area.
Yeah, this is where usually where those West Texas schools, they kind of show their grit. They're used to traveling. So I know El Paso schools are very familiar with Wichita Falls. So, all right, that's a brief look at 5A, and then we scroll over to 6A, Region 1, McKinney ISD Stadium. That's a nice little venue, right? Obviously hosted by McKinney ISD. And then Region 2, Kelly, this was an interesting one. I know you and I had a conversation about this one. Region 2, Kelly Reeves Athletic Complex in Austin, hosted by Round Rock ISD. What are your thoughts there?
Well, it makes all the Metroplex in Region 2 make them travel. Just like the West Texas teams have to travel all the way to McKinney for Region 1, and it's only, I guess, only fair. But I'm a little surprised with like the one for Region 1's in McKinney. I think they can find. I know in the past they've had it at Grande Communications Stadium in Midland,
right?
And I think maybe that should be the site, or even I think the stadium in Lubbock could be I think that's pretty much a halfway point for a lot of those teams in the area. Reeves, like I said, it's a nice complex. Used to host the state tournament, and I know, like I said, I'm sure those Metroplex teams in Region 2 are not happy driving there. They probably maybe want to have it in Waco, which would make sense. But, it's like I said, you're going to have to be a road warrior. If you're going to get to the finals, you got to be a road warrior.
Someone's going to have to travel somewhere at some point, without a doubt. Yeah. And then we scroll down. We finish up here in 6A, both boys and girls again. So Abshire Stadium there in Deer Park, hosted by Deer Park ISD, and we're both very familiar with the Blossom Athletic Complex here in San Antonio for Region 4, hosted by Northeast ISD. So, thoughts on these?
Have you noticed that that's the only field at Blossom is the only field that you play on natural grass? Of all the regional sites, it's the only one that has natural grass. I kind of wish they moved that one. I know they do rotate it with the Brownsville Sports Park. They do it every 2 years. I know that's a turf field because I've been down there. But one place I would love to have the regional final there for Region 4 would be at Toyota Stadium. I think that would be an awesome venue to have. Especially show up, play at an actual soccer field. For a final, for a regional final would be great. Be a great experience for the players too.
You got to talk to Harry and Royce, man. Have them put that pressure on SAFC. They listen to Harry, so I don't know. He puts that pressure on them.
Well, I've been telling Harry, like, even the state final, honestly, they should move it away from Birkenbach and play at Q2 Stadium. I mean, play at an actual soccer venue.
Yeah.
Not
and again, with obviously, as you know, that's always easier said than done.
Yeah.
Usually, when it comes down to logistics, schedules, these things got to be coordinated well in advance, and then, excuse me. Also, these grounds crews for a lot of these professional facilities, they're very picky, right,
Mhm.
as to who and when, particularly when they're in season. Especially with your natural grass, I should say,
Yeah.
facilities. So, and then you also get into the aspect of actual rental fees, right, within school districts. School districts are always going to ask, okay, well, who's going to pay for this? How are we going to pay for this? Because they're, and then workers as well, security for these type of events at another venue. So, excuse me, these are the administrative pieces behind it. I know that they always play a factor, and I get it. It's easier said. It's easy to look at. You look at football and you look at they're there at AT&T Stadium. You look at basketball and you look at the Alamo Dome. So
Mhm.
can there be a bigger push for this? Yes. Should there be a bigger push for something like this? Absolutely. But I think there's still a lot of work to be done there. So coaches, talking to your administrators, continuing to push that with UIL, because I don't know, this doesn't really ever seem to be enough of a topic towards the UIL to put on the agenda for their summer meetings that they have up in Austin. So I think need to continue to push that agenda a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're gonna look here really quick. Make sure. Gonna move on. Look at the state tournament, right? So after the regional tournament, here are your key dates. How the schedule will actually break down in Georgetown there at Birkelbach. Let me pull this up here again. Here we go. So soccer state championships again, Wednesday, April 13th through Saturday, April 16th.
Mm-hmm.
And scroll here. So, all right. So Wednesday, April 13th that's basically 4A day, right? So 11, 1:30, 4, and 6:30. It's all 4A only on Wednesday, April 13th. Thursday, April 14th, you will have kicks off the 5A semifinals, and they work in there. Let me see if I can adjust it here. There we go. And they work in there the 4A girls final. So it's just one 4A final, which is the girls on Thursday, April 14th. So the 4A boys looks like they'll have an actual break, right? They'll have a 1-day layover between the semifinal and the final, but the girls will not. So thoughts on these first 2 days, Coach?
I mean, like you mentioned before about the stadiums, like, well, let's play all this. Like I say, if you want to play the semifinals there in Georgetown, let's do that. And then the final, we'll have it at Q2. I mean, we can have it in 1 day, 4 games in 1 day at Q2, and that way allow some of these players to rest, because I can imagine the girls, like the 4A girls final, traveling in, playing on the Wednesday, and then playing and then you make it to the final, you got to play again. So it's gonna take a toll on your body, not only the travel, but playing back to backs, and that could affect the results of the final.
Yeah.
And you want the best quality game too. You want fresh teams to play against each other, and I think that's something they need to maybe start considering.
Right.
I think doing that, like I said, playing the semifinals, like they have it kind of this format, but then playing all the finals on a Saturday, or even split stadiums. Since you were playing at Georgetown, maybe you can play other half of the semifinals on the same day at Round Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have 4 finals on Saturday there at the Q2 stadium. It's anything just to kind of give players opportunities to recover
Right,
And
right.
that's the main. I think that's what the UIL needs to really start considering for the future.
Yeah, and and I think from the perspective of having the tournament in Austin, I think that's a good call. Relatively central, right? Um, and it's not like there aren't a lot of venues in the Austin area. And I get it from one perspective is it's easier from the administrative piece, uh, from the security piece, right? From the logistical piece to have it all in one location. I get that too. I get that as well. But if they can add another location, whether it be, I mean, I don't know, you're talking about whether it's UT, at Mike A. Myers Field there, or excuse me, even there in Georgetown, right? Coordinating maybe possibly the possibility of something with Southwestern University has a nice facility. Uh,
Or
never actually been to St. Edwards, so I don't know what St. Edwards facility is like.
the,
So there are different facilities there.
the Round Rock Soccer multi complex
Correct.
that
Correct.
where the TAPS finals happen, they can play there too.
Correct. Yeah,
I mean,
that's exactly what TAPS does. And TAPS has, if you'll notice, you want to talk about a true central hub. You got two games going there simultaneously.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah. So just another thought. I think they have in terms of the city. I think they got the right idea. But in terms of, I get where you're coming from too. As far as venue, that's something that us as coaches, as supporters, as parents need to continue to push. So, all right, moving on. We look at day 3 and day 4. Friday, April 15th, the 6A, the big boys begin 6A, the 6A semifinals, and now you have the 4A boy final, which started on Wednesday. So you're looking at games from pretty much 12 hours of games, right? 9:30 a.m. and then with the second 6A boy semifinal starting at 7:30. So 5 matches on the day here to include the 4A boys final in the middle. Any thoughts here?
I mean, imagine playing overtime on a Friday night and then turning it around, trying to play the final.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a toll. I mean, that's been the schedule for since
Yeah.
we've had this format, since we had 5A and now we added the 4A. So, and I know in the past they maybe have rotated, like 5A started earlier than, or 6A starts a day earlier than the other ones, but
Right.
so it's still, like I said, you play overtimes, go to penalty kicks, it's still going to take a toll on you if you have to play a back to back. And like I said, it's for those 5A girls, that 5A semifinals, they still got time to rest, so they do get, like, you do see there the 5A boys, 5A girls, they do have a day of rest on Friday
Correct.
to recover, but
Yeah.
6A you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So I guess there is an argument to be said that 5A kind of, I don't know. It's impossible to be able to give equitable rest in this schedule, this format, obviously. But I think, yeah, you can definitely make the argument that 5A maybe gets the best, break. So, and then we look at Saturday, April 16th. So it's all 5A and 6A finals with 4 matches on this day at 11, 1:30, 4, and then wrapping up with a final match of the season on Saturday, April 16th at 6:30 p.m. for the 6A boys. Um, so and this has been kind of one of the arguments that compounds that why they elect not to do kind of like how they do with how you see with football, where the breaking of Division 1 and Division 2, right? The argument there is
mhm.
because of usually it's here. It's when it gets to the playoffs and when it gets to regional tournaments and state tournaments as far as the number of games, the quick turnaround. So um, you look at the final day, anything stand out to you here on April 16th?
Just said the big classification is gonna have to pull back to backs. 12 hours, after your last semifinal for the boys, you're back at it, to get to the final. And depending on how long, maybe they do need to maybe move that game back a little bit, maybe to like a 7:30 start time instead.
Yeah.
Same thing with the girls, maybe a 5 o'clock start time. Uh, Give them at least some little extra time to recover And then also, like I said, there's some spacing between these finals, so maybe if you need to clean up or whatever needs to be done at the stadium, especially if there's let's say the two finals of 5A boys or girls goes into extra time. It's not going to cut into the other two games and so forth.
Right.
So I think that they can possibly do that.
Yeah.
Maybe in the future.
Yeah. Okay. And that is a look, and we will dive into this further, but that is an initial look again at your soccer state championship dates for there in Georgetown at Brickleblock Field, Wednesday, April 13th through Saturday, April 16th. And again, this is courtesy of the UIL Texas website. So, all right. All right, Coach. So all that to be said, now comes the unveiling of the very first of its kind, right? We got the give me 1 second here. I'm trying to expand it here a little bit. So we got the unveiling of the RPI, the Rafa Power Index. This is a very, very unique twist in terms of how you kind of came to this top 25 power index here. So tell us a little bit of just kind of what went into it and the angle, your approach in putting this together.
Yeah, I just really kind of researched the teams and looked through, their records and district play and who they faced in the non-district and I think the girls ranking was a lot tougher because there's quite a few undefeated teams, and you kind of look and say, okay, well, let me see who they played, and so forth. And there are some teams on the Power Rankings that have played against each other, so I took that into consideration as far as where they needed to be at. But just I think, like I said, doing the research, looking at these schedules, I've seen other polls that just basically copy and paste or it's just a popularity contest. No, this is kind of, you have to do the research, you have to look through, see what they've done, and also look at what type of districts they're in. How are they doing things in, or are they dominating, or they're barely getting by, or how competitive it is. So it took a while, but like I said, rankings are just rankings. To me, the one ranking that matters the most is who's the one that's holding the trophy in April. That's what matters the most.
Yeah. So, and I think the big thing with this one, right, and what we had kind of teased before was, I know when you and I had these initial conversations, and I kind of threw out the idea, or the idea of the concept that you later put together was, hey, why don't we look at something from the perspective of, if you're going to do a power index, why don't we look at it from the perspective of for our boxing fans, for our fighting fans, our UFC fans, you'll understand the term of pound for pound, right? Regardless of classification, right? We'll look at the boys, we'll look at the girls, but regardless of classification, what would be your ideal, your top 25 maybe programs, your top 25 teams, top 25 schools in the state, regardless of classification, right? So based upon just as you said, their body of work, who they've played, the strength of schedule, the strength of their district, factoring in all those factors, right? So is there a certain level of pedigree and reputation? Sure, absolutely. But they've also worked for that, right? They've worked for that as well. So that can't be ignored, but that's also not the reason why you ultimately put this power index together. So again, that's the big one. So you're going to see all kinds of, you're going to see 5As, 6As, 4As in here. So without further ado, let's look at, run us through here, Coach, and let me know if I need to zoom in or if you can see this.
I can see that.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to let you get started with this. All right. So we'll go in our increments kind of. So this is the unveiling of your Texas high school girls the RPI, as we've dubbed it, right? The Rafa Power Index. So a kind of an inside look at a pound for pound top 25 across the state, regardless of classification. So, Coach, take us through 25 through 20, kind of things that stood out to you. Take us through.
Well, the first one, 25, I have the San Antonio Lady Bears from Brennan. They've been one of the most consistent teams in San Antonio. I know they had a setback last week against O'Connor. That was kind of like almost close to the de facto district title game, but they're back in first place. And just to show you how tough that district is, like I said, O'Connor had beaten them, but O'Connor recently lost to Taft, which that could have kind of tipped the scale for that. But I have Brendan right now. They're at the top program for 29-6A. They're one of the better teams here in San Antonio. It's 24. I have Lucas Lovejoy, great program there from the Metroplex area. Keep an eye out for them. They're going to surprise some people, I think, in the playoffs. And this one team you may not want to play in the early rounds. 23, that was San Antonio Clark, which was nobody talked about Clark here in San Antonio. About they've been like I said, a perennial local power. But this year they've really kind of got things together. I know they had one little setback with Reagan, but they're still on top of that 28-6A title race. 22 have Capel. Like I said, Capel's got the pedigree. They had the pedigree. They have the tradition. They've been in it. Like I said, they've always been a contender, and I think they have a good chance also in their region. A newcomers, Bay City for 4A. Bay City is not really known for soccer, for especially girls soccer, more for football in the past. But Bay City has done, the girls have done an excellent job, in their season, and they could be one of the favorites in that region 3. Argyle, another powerhouse from, in 4A, 4A in the Metroplex area. They said they're going to be one of the favorites. Same thing with Salina. Salina is another one. I remember last year we were following them. They're winning some games with some ridiculous scores in the playoffs and setting records, and they're probably on a team on a mission to kind of show that wasn't a fluke last year. Another team.
They also have the forward. I butcher her name every time, but she's on the verge of becoming the all-time Texas high school girls soccer scoring leader. Got to follow up on that, see where she's at on that chasing that record.
Yeah. So she's, like I said, having her on the team, I think I said they're going to have to be one of the favorites. They're going to go deep in the playoffs. 17, I have Friendswood. They've always been one of the powerhouses for 5A for girls soccer in Houston. Like I said, year in, year out, they're one of the favorites to come out of that region. Another surprise is Lake Belton is one of the newest schools in the state. 24-1. They're doing something right there, and you can, like I said, they're going to be a team to be reckoned with, come to the playoff time. 15, I have the Smithson Valley Rangers, and they've been, like I said, I know they had a little setback in the first game against O'Connor, but they've won 19 in a row, and they had a big win over Westlake. They may be that sleeper team in Region 4 that could sneak out, knock off Lake Travis or Reagan or even Clark and get to this, to the state tournament. 14 is Cedar Park. They're undefeated. They're going to win their district. They had a memorable game last year against Dripping Springs in that regional final. So, and I can see. So don't count them out. Like I said, they can make another deep run. We could see another Dripping Springs Cedar Park rematch. Lake Travis. Like I said, what can you say about Lake Travis girls? They're probably one of the favorite. They're probably the favorite for Region 4 for 6A. The only setback was against Dripping Springs, and that was pretty much felt like a state championship game. Another one is Hearst Bell. They're undefeated in the Metroplex area. So they're just chugging along. Like I said, but Region 1, like I said, they're gonna have to contend with, like I said, with the Capels and also the Salt Lake Carrolls and so forth. Number 11 is Prosper. That's another team. I think they're in Region 2. That could come out and get into the state semifinal. Wiley is another one in their Region 2. Region 2, they've been consistent. For 4A, Stephenville, like I said, they're the champs. For the 4A. I think they're going to dominate Region 1 again, and I'll see more likely we're going to see them in Georgetown. Duncanville, like I said, the girls, what can I say, they've been very consistent. That whole metroplex area is just full of top teams. And it's going to be a shame that there's some of these teams are going to be knocking each other off in the playoffs, and a lot of these can be the state title contenders. Same thing with Allen, same thing with Flower Marcus, from that area. Rock, like I said, same thing. Rock Hill, Dallas Highland Park. I think they're another contender for 5A. They've won this title in the past. The Palestine girls, they haven't been talked to a lot. I know everybody talks about Stephenville girls. This could be the year for them to make some noise and win that title for them. And then we have Bridgepoint out of Missouri City. They're going to be they're a surprise there from they're in Region 3 in the Houston area.
Right.
I think they're going to go deep. And then my number one pound for pound, my Canelo Alvarez.
Go ahead, bust it out, put it on. You can put it on. Put on the beanie.
Yeah, my Canelo Alvarez of Texas high school girls soccer is Dripping Springs. I mean, what can you say about Dripping Springs? I mean, I've had the pleasure to see them quite a few times. I mean, they just put on the show, and not a knock on the other teams. Like I said, on the other teams, they wouldn't be on this list if they didn't have talent. But this team, has the it factor. With their goalkeeper, Oklahoma State commit. But just the bench has a lot of talent. Even though, like I said, even their JV program has a lot of talent. So this program is really going to set, it's really setting the bar as far as how great of your soccer program should be at. And like I said, I know they're going to be moving up to 6A, but I don't think they're going to miss a beat there. And then they'll probably be up here in the top, in the top 5 again for the next few years.
Yeah, and I think. Yeah, it kind of goes without saying. I think at this point, it's not. It's a very warranted respect and love affair with Dripping Springs. I guess you could say. We don't want to think that we're just being homers in any way. No, they're the real deal. They're the real deal. Having seen them play, I think probably 3 or 4 times this season myself.
Yeah.
They are, every time we've seen them, they've been better. Right, they've been better, and they obviously play in a very strong district as well. And with Bernie Champion, Alamo Heights, Kerrville, Tybee, just to name a few. But even then, even in that strong tournament, they've clearly separated themselves. They've beat some 6As already. We saw them play early in the year during a scrimmage against Smithson Valley, in a game that was, again, keep in mind, this is a scrimmage in December, and it felt like we were watching a state playoff game in April, so they are for real. And the big thing, just like as you said with Dripping Springs, there's 2 things that you notice with them is they don't make mistakes, and the level of depth that they have in terms, there's no drop off when you start seeing players come in off of their bench. There is no drop off. So a lot of really strong teams in here. I see you talk about Ridgepoint, who's been building and who's been doing really well. Palestine getting not a lot of talk here. There's a lot of good programs on here. And some are within the same district as well. So that's saying something. Now I do have a question here for you. Do you have, going full Joe Lenardi bracketology mode here, do you have what would be a next 4 in or let's say a next 5 in that you wanted to give some love to maybe?
Yeah, there's some other programs, like for example, like South Lake Carroll. I had the pleasure of watching them play. I know they lost to Bernie Champion, which is another one. That's another program. I saw them here playing San Antonio. Don't count South Lake Carroll out. They got some quality players. They got that super freshman on their team. so they're gonna do some damage in Region 1. Also, Flower Mound, even though they're in that brutal district with Marcus, they're still in the playoff hunt, but don't count them out because they are still the state finalists, and
Right.
they can make another run. Another team that's special to you is also the El Paso and Franklin Cougars. I mean, they've been one of the top girls teams in El Paso, and they may start. I think they may surprise some people in the first 2 rounds. Before they get to the Metroplex area. I guess I mentioned Bernie Champions won. I'm trying to
South Lake Carroll, Flower Mound, Franklin, Bernie Champion. That's 4. Who would be your number 5 of your next 5 in?
Probably the next 5 in. Probably maybe like the Reagan girls. Okay. They've recently got 2 big wins. They knocked off Clark, they knocked off Johnson. The O'Connor Panthers is another one. They're one of those sleeper teams.
They were one of the hottest teams in the state until they fell just this past weekend versus Taft, which I know that says more about Taft than it does about O'Connor, just because Taft they've been trending upward as well here in San Antonio. But when I look at it, I think maybe there's that one, I forget, I'm forgetting the district off the top of my head, but 1 or 2 schools that could maybe have an argument in here as well. I think you could look at, they're in the same district, is Vandergrift and maybe Westwood, Austin Vandergrift, Austin Westwood, who are both undefeated, but Vandergrift gets the edge on as far as a district champion. But both teams played against each other, and Vandergrift they're an interesting one. They have a new coach. They're on what's supposed to be a rebuild in their eyes, but yet here they are as district champions as well. So those are maybe 2 more to keep your eye on as well as we start inching closer to the playoffs. We mentioned Westwood as well. Shout out to them. Got to give them a lot of love. I don't know how you managed to
even in 4A Giddings. The Giddings girls got a great program, and also I forgot to mention El Paso High girls. They got 19 wins, and
that's a big surprise. I can tell you that's a big surprise in the 915 is I believe they got a new coach, but yeah, they're firing on all cylinders.
So that's a team that you cannot sleep on, moving forward. And like I said, and then you also have like maybe Wichita Falls Rider. I know what happened with the Angelo player, but they still have talent. Can't count them out. Amarillo High girls. That's another team from probably the best girls team in the Panhandle right now.
Yeah.
So,
okay, good, awesome. So again, you are looking at here. So this is the RPI, as we've dubbed it, the Rafa Power Index. His pound for pound top 25, based on a number of factors, including. Can't just look at record because not all records are equal, right? But who they've played, strength of schedule, maybe tournaments that they played in early in the year as well, but also strength of district, difficulty of district, and then, of course, district schedule as well. So, and does the pedigree and reputation kind of come into play a little bit? Sure, but that's not the only reason.
Some tradition, too.
Absolutely.
What's run in the past.
Absolutely. All right, so that does it for the girls. Let's look at, and now the boys here. So let me know, is that good there, Coach?
Yeah.
Okay. So now here is the RPI. Oh, I forgot your name there. The Rafa Power Index top 25 for the boys across the state of Texas. So take us through 25 through 20 here, Coach.
Well, 25, I have Katie Patel. Hopefully I didn't butcher their name. One of the newer programs, the newer Katie schools. They're leading the district. Like I said, they're going to be a team to look out for in Region 3 for 5A. I have the Alamo Heights Mules. They're at 16-2-1. They had a big win over the Dripping Spring boys team, who they were cruising through that district, and they went up to the Dripping Springs and knocked them off. Frisco Wakeland, the defending state champs, they're currently in second place right now in their district. I know they have 4 losses, but they're against quality teams.
Right.
But when you've won this state titles back to back to back, you're still a contender, and until they knock you off, you're still gonna, you're still king of the hill for right now. Like I said, but the one thing I think was kind of surprised when they got knocked off by El Paso Eastlake, which we'll talk about in a bit. Katie Tompkins, another great program from the Katy area. They've really turned that like I said, that program's really come up. Being from a new school, like I said, I have a friend of mine that used to coach in that district. That team's been dynamite, and they've been a playoff contender every year, and also winning district titles. McKinney Boyd is another great program. They're probably one of the better programs in that McKinney ISD area. Tyler Legacy, like I said, out in East Texas. No one really talks about East Texas soccer, and like I said, Tyler's been one of those teams that, formerly Tyler Lee, because they've been a consistent program. Leander Roos, they're in first place in their district. Like I said, a lot of teams were sleeping on them, and they've surprised everybody, and now they're going to end up winning their district. Duncanville, just like the girls, just lots of talent on that team. Next up, you have Colville Heritage, another perennial Metroplex power that's been consistently making the playoffs. Then you have the Lake Travis, one of the favorites here for Region 4. They got to the regional final against Lee. Like I said, don't sleep on them. Like I said, they could end up representing Region 4. Dripping Springs boys, like I mentioned, they were actually my favorite for 5A for Region 4. I guess until Alamo Heights kind of brought them back to earth on that loss last weekend. But like I said, don't count them out. Like I said, they're still a great team. Like I said, I think they could get to Corpus Christi for that regional tournament. Palestine, like I said, Palestine's been the class act for 4A in East Texas. They're still, will this be the year they finally get over the hump and finally win the big one? We'll see. One of the things they kind of get a knockoff is because of their district schedule. The district teams are not so strong. Hopefully like I said, they played some strong non-district games to get them, prepared, for that long run into the playoffs. Another team is Brownsville Porter. Brownsville Porter, one of the better programs there in the Brownsville area. Like I said, you got other programs like Lopez, you got Verner's Memorial, Hanna, Rivera. But for 5A, like I said, Porter's been the consistent team. I think this is the year they get to Corpus Christi this year. Bernie, the 4A state champs, they've kind of cruised, through their district. Even they went down there to the Valley for a 4A tournament, took care of business there. The only 2 losses was against Alamo Heights and, I forgot who was the other team, but quality teams, so.
Yeah. And you wouldn't expect anything less from Bernie and, excuse me. I know Coach Strong's going to have them ready for, for the state playoffs. And, I think that's the thing with them is they're the defending state champs. They're kind of just methodically going through their season, taking care of business. And I know you mentioned just for them to be aware of schools like Lavernia, but I think with them, they're kind of, for being a state champ, you would think maybe and that's not to say they don't have a target on their back, but they've just kind of quietly have gone about their business. It's almost like people have forgotten a little bit that, hey, these guys they're the defending state champs, and could very well be every bit as stronger, if not stronger than last year. And they come back with that experience from last year. Coach Strong will have them ready. I think before it's all said and done, they obviously make a very deep run, and they're probably a program that I think that I'm not going to say they're, not getting the love maybe that they should.
Under the radar.
But yeah, it's more just kind of quietly, just quietly kind of being overlooked a little bit across the state a little bit maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But I think when it's all said and done, they're definitely going to leave their mark on the state state playoffs for sure.
Yeah, like I said, they'll have some teams contending against like Progreso and Hidalgo, and maybe even like I said, Lavernia. Like I said, I'm hopefully we get to see that game. We'll see how how that game goes through. Another team is San Antonio Reagan. No one talked about them. I know they've had the tradition of being a great program. Like I said, they have a state title in the past, but they didn't really. Last year they got bounced out early by New Braunfels, and nobody expected a lot from them this year. But they've really turned it up, and they recently just became the district champs for 2027 for 28-6A. And
you're talking about Reagan, correct?
Yeah, Reagan. Yeah. So they finally knocked off Lee off that winning streak from the district play, and that game that I did go to, and they basically took Lee apart as far as offensively.
Yeah.
They just did not. One thing about them, they will smother you as far as they got a high press that they're not going to let you set the tone. They're going to set the tone, and when you make mistakes, they make you pay, and they take advantage of those plays and stuff. So they're going to be a very dangerous team in Region 4, like I said, going into the playoffs. And Lake Travis and Austin Westlake, Vandergrift or Westwood or even McNeil, I'd keep an eye out on these guys because, like I said, they will make you pay if you can't beat their press.
Yeah, with Reagan, having seen them play twice this year, I think first time I got to see them, I know we were covering a game with you I think it was against Johnson. I think you had already seen them play. That was my first time seeing them play. But you talk about a certain it factor. In terms of this area, this region in the San Antonio area, they definitely have it. And just their style of play, for sure. I think you could see the makings, if they stay healthy, stay the course, right, and continue to play their game. I think you can definitely see they could potentially be on that collision course, right, that regional semifinal final collision course with depending upon how the draw, right, we talk about the bracket, the draw you get in the bracket, they could be on that potential collision course with a Vandergrift or a Lake Travis, or they may end up having to come across Lee again, right? So we talked about Lee, about how Lee's going to still be dangerous. So I think Reagan has a chance to be special.
Yeah. And then you have Katy Seven Lakes, another great program. They've been consistent too, and I'm sure them and Tompkins have some battles in district play. Then you have another kind of team that's been under kind of little radar, but for 5A here in San Antonio is Southwest. And like I said, Southwest is actually my number 2 team in my power rankings for locally. They've taken care of business in their district play. They haven't really been challenged yet. And then also the biggest news for they had this year is their coach. Their head coach is no longer with them. He got hired to be the head coach at Texas A&M San Antonio for the men's program. So we'll see how that affects him in the playoffs, because Coach Hamadia had a lot of great, a lot of years, a lot of experience, his leadership, not having that in the playoffs, how is that going to affect them if, let's say, they get behind, which in the past, like I said, their Achilles heel has been like the Valley teams, like especially for Valley View. How are they going to, if they're behind, how are they going to react to that? So we'll sleep on them. And they can get
a great point. Such a great point there with Coach Jaramillo, and just coaching in general. I wanted to hit on that is when you get into the state tournament, right? And you get into the state playoffs. I mean, and the further you go, especially once you coaching, it's real easy to say, well, hey, they got more club players or they got better players, they got more experienced players. But you start getting into that regional quarterfinal round and beyond, you really see coaching can potentially win or lose you games, right? So yeah, very important to see how they adapt to that as well. But yes, a very talented Southwest squad as well.
Yeah, then another great team from the Metroplex is Keller. Like I said, Keller's in that same district with Silent Curl, and like I said, but they've been dominating that district. Another surprise team is Frisco Lone Star. Everybody was talking about Wakeland and them being the state champs, and the Lone Stars actually controlling that district. They have the district league. I think they're about to clinch. I think they already clinched the district title for the season, and so that's another Frisco team that you're probably gonna have to look out for in Region 2. Um, and then for number 6 is my number 1 team in San Antonio is the Harlem Hawks. They had a great run last year. They did lose to Lake Travis last year, but they took Lake Travis to the limit. This just fell a little bit short, and I have seen Harlem play a few times, and they won the Alamo Heights tournament. They played some really good quality teams, and don't sleep on them. I think they could get to the regional final. They have the talent, the coaching. They've done, they got themselves a really great program in there at Harlan, and I wouldn't be surprised if they can get to Georgetown. Woodlands, what can you say about Woodlands? Perennial power, year in, year out. The talent of the players that they have there. They've always, like I said, they're always a contender there for Region 2. Cypress Creek, another surprise team from the Houston area. Like I said, look out for them in Region 3. And then Ailey Felsick, a few years ago they won state. Nobody thought that, they were kind of a little Cinderella story. Now they built themselves a really good program. And like I said, I think they're going to be one of the favorites in Region 3. Grapevine, another Metroplex area team, powerhouse. I think they're going to go deep in their playoffs. And then my number 1 is the El Paso Eastlake. Like I said, they've been very consistent. I know they had one little setback, but I think they're on a mission. Kind of similar like with last year with Lee. Lee was on the mission last year because they felt shorthanded not getting that state title because of COVID. I think Eastlake, I think they're on a mission to get to that state tournament and get to the state final after that little setback against Allen. Because nobody thought Allen was going to beat them, and they got surprised. And I think they're focused, and I wouldn't be surprised if they could be lifting the trophy in Georgetown.
Yeah, they're definitely, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I want to say, I don't know if it's the top 3 or the top 5 in your RPI here. We're all also getting like national ranking coverage by Prep Soccer, if I'm not mistaken. I know Eastlake, Grapevine, and Lee Felsick for sure, but I can't recall if Cypress Creek and Woodlands were as well. But yeah, I think Eastlake has a chance also to be very special. And having seen them up close previously, but I know all indications is that they're better than last year. Yeah. So trying to avenge that regional final loss to Allen, as you said. So we'll see. Definitely an exciting group here, Coach. Definitely a strong one. So again, that is the first version of the boys and girls, the Rafa Power Index, as we call it. So,
and I do have some honorable mentions also for the boys. I
was going to get to that. You have your next 5 in for the boys.
Yeah, you got some other programs. I'm going to mention San Antonio Lee. I know it's been a little disappointing year for them in district play, but don't sleep on them. I think Coach Rogers is going to, he's going to have them ready to play in the playoffs. And I think all this adversity they've gone through, they're going to have a little chip on their shoulder, and not so much of the target, the more of that chip on their shoulder, kind of have like, hey, you know what? People think we're down. We're going to prove them wrong. So don't sleep on them. You have other teams like, for example, in the Valley, Brownsville Hannah for 6A. They may surprise some teams too. They're in district play. Also, we got some teams in the. I'm trying to see where else in the Kingwood Park's another one because they made it to the final last year, and we got some other teams. There's one team in 4A, Snyder. Woods is a newer program.
Right.
They got a dynamite record, and they're doing good things there. I know they had a setback with San Angelo Lakeview, but they could contend with San Eli out of the El Paso area. San Eli's, right. That's another program too that
Yeah.
could get to to Georgetown as well. So those are some of my kind of honorable mentions going into the playoffs.
All right. Awesome. So we will continue again this this RPI Rafa Power Index here, this top 25 for the boys and girls. Totally different type of format. It's based off of your kind of your pound for pound listing, regardless of classification. So definitely a unique twist. That's a lot of work you put into that, obviously. So and again, always subjective. It's never going to be perfect. That's always a given when you're dealing with this kind of stuff. But appreciate your work on that, Coach. And again, we will unveil this again at our next episode, episode 3 of Inside Texas High School Soccer. So, and we will be coming to you all live again. Probably somewhere right around that district certification deadline, or if not, by the start of the by district round. So, which will be again, district certification deadline for UIL will be Tuesday, March 22nd, and the state playoffs begin on Thursday, March 24th, with the kickoff of the by district round. So, all right, Coach, this has been awesome. I've been really glad to have you here, have you join us. Any final thoughts as we start to wrap up here?
Yeah, just like I said, we're excited. We're getting close to the end. I guess I remember we were just not so months ago that we just started the season, and it's gone so fast. And we've seen a lot of surprises, and a lot of teams really rise. And like I said, I'm really looking forward for this playoffs to see who's really gonna shine, and who's a pretender, who's a contender. And like I said, any given day, anybody can get knocked off, and just because you're not on made the list or you have a certain record, anything can happen. You still got to play the games because the numbers are not gonna determine if you advance or not. So, and I'm also looking forward to our bracketology. Like I said, our in-person bracketology. We actually get to be in person, face to face. I don't know if we're gonna have you on here for the bracketology, and we'll have a couple other people as well. So give our insight as far as who takes the crown in April for the boys and the girls for all 3 classifications.
Yeah, I keep telling Harry we need to shoot for 4-hour episode this time. See if we can break last year's record. So yeah, definitely excited. Again, for all our supporters, thank you for your support. Thank you for the listens. Thank you for the downloads. Oh, Coach, before I forget, for our listeners across the state, where can they find more info on the San Antonio Soccer Roundtable as far as social media and listening to the podcast?
Yeah, we're on Twitter, like I said, at the SATX Soccer. We're also on Facebook, which you can also see some of my live streams from our live stream games. So you can see anyone trying to do a scouting report, you can probably see some games there. I think I'm going to be doing a game Tuesday. I haven't announced it yet. I'm going to kind of keep it a little secret, but it's going to be a good with the 2 teams I'm going to do. They're 2 playoff teams, and I'm looking forward to seeing these 2 teams play. I guess there's some talent on these 2 squads, and hopefully I think we have the last streaming we'll have. Hopefully we'll see is one. I think March 21st. We're waiting to see if we can get to that one, and then let the playoffs begin. So, and then also, if you're a fan of USL soccer, especially San Antonio FC, just follow us on our Sunday show, and hopefully you won't have to do an early 9 a.m. show again.
9 a.m. show, huh?
So we might have to have a talk about that and say, hey, we might have to do like a brunch special or something, like at 10 or 11 o'clock.
All right. Well, we will not be having any episodes of Inside Texas High School Soccer at 9 a.m. I can tell you that right now. So, all right. Awesome. Well, Coach, I've loved having you on here. Thank you again. Appreciate your time. Always love doing this with you. And then again, for our listeners, thank you. You can find us again. This is season 2, episode 2 of Inside Texas High School Soccer. You'll be able to find it as well underneath the 50/50 podcast with all the other episodes, which you can also now find the audio version. So we're on all the major platforms. So go ahead, look there. Again, you can also find us on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. So just continue to listen, continue to spread the word. We appreciate you guys. You're the reason why we do it. For our coaches out there, same thing. thank you for all you've done. And another year. I know we're getting ready. We're ramping up towards the playoffs, talking about the state playoffs, but only 4 teams per district make it. So there's anywhere from 3 to probably 6, maybe 7 in some of these bigger districts, schools who don't make it to the playoffs. So we have you in mind as well. So continue to put in that hard work and developing these young leaders across the state, because that's really what we're charged with first and foremost. So we thank you all. Thank you for your time, and you know what to do. Until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening. You've been listening to the 50/50 podcast, powered by College Promoters USA. Help us continue to grow by liking, rating, and subscribing on all major podcast platforms. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at 50_50pod, on Instagram at 50_50 podcast, as well as on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. Until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening.